Yes.
Oh my gosh, we caught you. Yes, so it's
Okay.
thank goodness it's Adam, Gretchen, and Paul. How are you doing?
Hi.
Hi, Laura.
I'm good. Hi.
So what
Oh my goodness.
what mountain are you on top of?
Well, I'm actually still in Seattle, so it's less of an issue today.
Oh, good,
good.
good. Phew.
Yeah. We have a ski house up in the mountains about an hour from here. That's where most weekends, but
Nice.
teenagers' social life got in the way of that this
Oh.
weekend. Yeah, you know.
I see. Well, your loss is our gain, so we get to speak to you. So
You guys sound like you're holding up really well. Everybody's in a good mood. I love it.
yeah, no, it's been really fun today. Actually, having Gretchen here really changes the dynamic. By this point, Paul's usually asleep, on the desk.
I'm off camera, and if I doze off now, no one can see me. But so far, the guests have been interesting enough that I can stay awake.
Oh my gosh! So Laura,
Excellent.
I heard that your talk is really funny. So we just got reviews from Steve Silverberg saying that your talk is hilarious. So we haven't actually seen it yet. So congratulations!
And Addie's dance music. So I have to go back and watch this because it sounds totally awesome.
Oh, I'm so glad. I can't wait to hear what you think. You better put your boogie shoes on.
Oh,
before you start,
absolutely.
'cause
Absolutely.
Oh my
How
gosh.
did you
should be
come
able
up
to
with
have
that
fun with dry
idea?
disease, don't you think?
How did you?
It's more how my crazy brain works. Like, I mean, I'm definitely an artist and a scientist, and I just see these connections between things, and it helps me remember stuff as well. I used to have some crazy mnemonics and stories told to myself to memorize massive lists of things in medical school, and it's just memory association is what it is. I'm taking advantage of that in a fun, playful way to hopefully make some of these concepts that can be really dry and really intense,
Oh, my
approachable
loss.
and digestible and danceable.
I only knew lyrics to Gilbert and Sullivan operettas, and it didn't work.
I can't sing for beans, so that really wouldn't work for me.
Oh my gosh!
So what songs did you choose to accompany your talk? So Boogie Shoes, obviously.
Well, that would be 70s, but yes, I do love 70s music as well. So I have this like idiot savant fascination with Daryl Hall and John Oates.
There we go.
Always have.
Daryl Hall is from the town where I went to high school. That
Oh,
is
there
the
you
claim
go.
to fame.
Really?
I've
So
never
Trish,
seen
Can you
him.
introduce me?
Doesn't he move to New York or something? Like flamed out and just moved to like upstate New York?
I have no idea, but I know that that's the claim to fame of the town where my mom was from, and that's where I graduated from high school. I've never seen
cool.
him, but yeah, so I just had to throw that out there just because you like Hall & Oates.
So I've met John. I've met John, and I've spent 15 minutes talking with him. He's super sweet, super shy, and we just like talked about music. He's totally my guitar hero. I play guitar. And, to watch him play is just jaw-droppingly awesome.
But how was his mustache?
How is the mustache? Did he still have it, or was it gone by then?
It's still full. It looks fantastic.
I'd just be staring at it the whole
Yeah, I
time,
know.
like, oh, look at the mustache.
Oh my gosh!
So you've got Hall & Oates
yeah,
in
I have
there.
this weird fascination. Yeah, Hall & Oates. So I broke it down into 4 main sections, and that was the first section is You Got a Lot of Nerve, which is from their 1980 album Voices. Mm-hmm. You Got a Lot of Nerve, and that is used to highlight the new neurologic aspects of dry disease that's in the TFOS DUCE 2 report. So that's brand new, and that's kind of a bit of a surprise to people. I said, well, let's put that in perspective and let's explore it a little bit. And so that's where the song You Got a Lot of Nerve comes from. And then I talked about the quality of life and visual performance aspects of dry eye disease, and that's where Private Eyes comes in.
Ah.
Right? Uh-huh. And then what came after that? Thinking about dry eye disease as a local regional disease, it's not just that eye. It's not just the precorneal tear film. There's a whole lot of other stuff that's in the neighborhood, and I call that the local regional effect, or the eyes without a face, Billy Idol aspect of dry eye disease. And then there's a innovations section where that's the Huey Lewis in the News. I want a new drug, one that won't make my mouth too dry or make my eyes turn red. So
Good choice.
Okay,
looking
so
for new medications.
I have a Huey
I think
Lewis
that's fun.
story. I saw him in concert here at the zoo here in Portland
Wait,
a year ago, 2
In
years ago.
concert at the zoo?
Okay, so Portland is a cool place, and our zoo, right by the elephants, right by where the elephants hang out, there's a concert venue, And so in the summer, old has-been acts come. Like we saw Katie Lang there. We see all these wonderful people there. And so Huey Lewis came, and I swear to God, he looks the same as he did in 1985. Like in Back to the Future. I mean,
Yeah,
he looks
he's
like
aged
the
well.
same. It's crazy.
He has aged well.
Wow.
Yep, lucky duck. Choose your parents carefully if you want to age well.
Yeah, seriously.
Clean living and choosing your parents carefully. That's the secret.
Whiskey and cigarettes. So that's really cool that you go through all of that, and it sounds like it's a great way to keep attendees engaged. Have you given the lecture live as opposed to a type of course where it's online?
It's, all these ideas are a work in progress, right? So the initial idea of like, oh, that reminds me of a song. When I first studied the neural pathways of homeostatic control of your tears, I'm like, gosh, that's a lot of neurobiological real estate devoted to 3 microliters of tear fluid. That's kind of a miracle. And then, of course, in my brain, in cues Barry Manilow, it's a miracle. Right? That's where the idea started, was with good old Barry Manilow. And I just kind of grew from there, just as I thought about other aspects of the disease. And I do love to teach. I love to give lectures. And so it's just been an evolution that's come along over the last 4 to 6 months. I keep adding on more pieces to it. And I've written one even since then, and it's different again, using some 80s music, but then also some Star Wars. So, it's just fun.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
That's cool. Maybe
I
you should...
use the Star Wars analogy to explain the 4 basic personality types of ophthalmic surgeons.
Okay, now that lecture I need to hear.
My own people.
I need to hear that. So, but the big question is, do you have a toy lightsaber that you take to the podium with you? Because you might need one.
Not yet, but my hair can do these really cool, like, side bun braided things.
Awesome. A little Princess Leia action. That's cool.
Yeah, I can do the side braids. Yeah, it's easy.
That's really funny. I like it. So what are your thoughts on what came out with TFOS DUES 2? That I know that you talked earlier about some feedback from some doctors. Of course, we've got the new definition in there. What have you been hearing about practitioners' responses to this, both OD and MD?
Well, that's a great question. I'm going to answer it completely honestly. I'm a little surprised that it hasn't made a bigger splash and impact, honestly, personally.
What do you mean by splash and impact? That people saying, oh my God, this is awesome, or oh my God, let me apply this in my practice? What were you expecting that didn't happen?
I was expecting more adoption, more recognition, because it is an incredible work of effort. Oh my gosh, this thing is an epic body of work, coordinating 150 different international experts and sitting down and figuring this out and combing through all that science and then writing the paper summarizing all this incredible science that we've had over the last 10 years. And it's just sort of fallen flat, and it leaves me scratching my head because I think it's amazing and it satisfies my inner nerd exquisitely, but I'm surprised it's not made a more impact. And so what I think is going on there is that it's a little overwhelming. Because really, we're talking about a document that's over 400 pages long, and it is dense. It is high-level nerd stuff. There is no dance party going on in there. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So
do you think it might
very
be?
Intense. It's very dense.
Do you think it might be the sequel effect?
Sequel effect? I don't think it's a sequel effect.
Okay.
That is an awesome question, though. It's not, because it's been 10 years.
Right. And everybody, lauds, the first DUES document, and people refer to it. They know what's going on, and it's sort of like when you watch a movie like Star Wars or Harry Potter. The first time you see it, there are all these special effects, and you are just totally overwhelmed. And anytime you see a sequel to a movie like that, you can never go back to that level of being overwhelmed, because you already have a level of expectation. So we had the first DUES document, and it was totally awesome, gave people lots of information. I don't know, that just a theory.
Yeah, I feel that, and I totally get what you're saying. I feel like it's more about being overwhelmed.
Sure.
And it's hard for people to keep up, right? It's an incredible body of work. So there's an overwhelmed element. There's a the way I'm practicing right now is just fine element. There's a little bit of resistance to, updating and changing. And so what I've tried to do is make it very approachable, because I am reading that thing, right? That's my job, is to know that document.
Right.
But that doesn't mean it has to be unapproachable for people. So what I've done is I've taken 6 big themes from the TFOS DEWS 2 report, and I've tried to distill it down into 300 words. And the only way to do that, cowboy wisdom.
Cowboy wisdom.
Cowboy wisdom. So I grew up in the wilds of Montana, raised by wolves, and there's always this really efficient shorthand way of getting across a whole lot of information. For example, it's some of them aren't necessarily polite to repeat in public, so I'm not going to use that example.
That actually might be the most fun example.
Language. But so there's colorful ways of saying how hard it's raining, for example, and that one's not politely repeatable. But that way of just like seeing the world through a simple analogy. And so the first installment was of the distilled series was the definition, and that was hashtag put your boots on, and I just try to like introduce the idea. Well, here's what's different, and et cetera, and just in 300 words. And then the next one was you can't ride a three-legged horse. And there's a picture of my granddad, and you saw it in the talk. There's 4 parts to the diagnostic approach to dry eye according to the TFOS DEWS 2 report, and broke it down in just 4 little sections and called them different things. And the third one was corneal neuropathic pain, and that's hashtag even cowgirls get the blues.
Oh,
so
nice.
Analogies like being saddle sore and time for barn raising, for reaching out to your colleagues, and stampede is the idea of this neurologic impulse storm going on in the central nervous system. So shorthand, quick ways to get the idea and hopefully engage somebody and encourage them to read a little more.
I like it. And that is quite the daunting task, to distill that down to 300 words. That's a lot of boiling down the sauce.
It really is. It's pretty intense, I won't lie. The next one that I have to do that's overdue is pathophysiology. I'm like, oh boy. So that one is only you can prevent forest fires.
Smokey the Bear.
That's the hashtag on that one. So there's a picture of the family homestead from the 1880s that's still standing in the mountains there.
I like it.
Things like that. Yeah.
Did you get a lot of questions from attendees at this talk here?
I didn't get a lot of questions, and that always concerns me a little bit.
Maybe everybody was dancing.
Maybe they were dancing. I hope that's what it was. I tried to cover a lot of ground, so
maybe they were overwhelmed.
Go back and ask questions later.
Yeah,
Laura, tell me about.
And it is at the end of your day.
Where do you practice? I know
I'm
you're
in Seattle.
You're fellowship trained corneal. Do you have a corneal practice?
It's I do 90% dry eye. That's my jam. That's what I do.
So who refers patients for dry eye?
Well, we get a lot of self-referrals, and we have a really wonderful collegial community here between the MDs and the ODs. We're lucky. We have a very collegial environment, and
that's great.
You can call people up at any time, and it's really wonderful. So we're really lucky in that regard. So the people just come from wherever.
It seems to me that rheumatologists should be referring to. Do you have other medical specialties that because you do dry eye?
I wish they would, honestly, because there's definitely a disconnect in what a rheumatologist sees as actionable versus what an ophthalmologist or optometrist sees as actionable as far as the damage phase of the disease state. And there's definitely a disconnect there. And with the advent of the early biomarkers for Sjogren's testing, that has highlighted the chasm between how rheumatology views the patient, how ophtho views the patient. So, you recognize a Sjogren's patient, you're battling the dry eye inflammation, and you send them to a room for systemic control, and the patient's not coming in a wheelchair, so they kind of don't take it quite as seriously with the biologics. And in my mind, I'm an immunobiologist, right? I'm like, if that were me, I would be like, yes, give me the immunobiologics, because time is tissue lost. If that inflammation is smoldering, you're going to lose tissue, and you can't get it back. Especially with the lacrimal gland. It has no regenerative capacity, unfortunately. So I'm like in a big hurry to get stuff under control because I know what the end game is, and it's not pretty. They don't have that same sense of urgency. Oftentimes the letter will come back saying something like, there's no evidence of end organ damage. I'm like, the eyeball is an end organ. You know?
Right. But, I
because
wonder...
they're not in kidney failure doesn't mean that they don't have end organ
Yeah, and why don't
damage.
we wait until they get to kidney
But you
failure?
know what? I wonder if these days, because of the internet, I bet patients are taking control of this, like Sjogren's patients. I bet, like in the olden days, you wouldn't know, right? You'd have a disease, you go to a rheumatologist, they'd be like, just do this and go home. But now, if you have a disease that's like Sjogren's, you're online.
You can Google it.
You know what's going on. So I wonder if people are finding...
Google.
Exactly. So they're finding you that way, probably directly, and just bypassing the rheumatologist, I would imagine.
I do see a fair number of patients that find me on their own, which is great. I mean, I love having that discussion. If somebody comes in with a bunch of information, I'm like, awesome, I'm already starting with a knowledge base. Let's do this.
Yep.
So it's...
So you like your patients to go on the internet and read up?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. The only thing I ask of them is to look at the source of where they found the information. That's the only thing I ask. Don't believe everything you see on a blog, because you can say the moon is made of cheese,
right?
And say in a blog in a certain section, and people won't believe it. So it's like, make sure it's a credible source that you're looking at.
That's really good advice and very pragmatic advice, because I know a lot of practitioners aren't happy when their patients get a little too Dr. Google happy. But it's also reality. I mean, that's the culture that we're in. Work with it. Right, you can't change society.
The really effective approach is if you fight that person that comes in with a whole bunch of information, you kind of bristle at it. You've already established an adversarial relationship with a patient. The right answer is yes and.
Right.
Right.
Well, I think one approach...
And then you can loop them into the journey together. That's therapeutic value.
But you see, you're taking the approach, which is interesting, because I obviously see you on social media. You're trying to be very proactive about this. So you're trying to flood the internet with correct information. And if more people did what you did, if more people did or do what you do constantly, things might not be as bad as they are.
Right.
I think the problem is that people who actually care and are experts, they're not posting as much as people like you. So, yeah.
I like what you just said.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. I'm a dork on a mission.
You said... when a patient comes in with a pile of stuff from the internet, and you say yes and, which is a connecting word, let's bring us together, as opposed to saying yes but, which is putting up a barrier and going and adding to that adversarial relationship that you said might be being created with the patient. So and as opposed to but. I really like that.
Yep. It's a good old improv comedy technique. I'm theater trained, and I loved that warm-up game of yes and. So the only rule of the game of yes and in improv comedy is you can't refuse an offer. And that's the term used for a line or a scenario or a situation that your fellow actor offers you. You can't refuse it and say, oh no. Just for example, oh my gosh, I think I see a purple fuzzy monster under that bush. You can't say, oh, it's not purple, it's red. That's against the rules. You can say, yes, and I think I see glowing green eyes on top of it.
Right.
So that's the rule of the game.
I like that.
And I find it just a really helpful tool for dealing with a frustrated patient.
It's a good philosophy to building better patient relationships. I like it.
Yes.
All right. Well, that is a good piece of advice. I've learned something today.
There you go. Only one?
Only one thing.
Only one.
It's hard with this crowd to learn a lot, right? But Paul keeps filling me with this disinformation, so I'm actually learning something useful.
I'm a wealth of 1950s trivia.
I'm so glad that we had a chance to talk about your class. It sounds like it was a really good talk, and I'm anxious to go see it and hear that awesome music. What a great, great premise to build a talk around.
Yep.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I hope it serves folks and is of good service and good entertainment and good fun and encourages more thinking.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Lauren. I hope we see you online at a future conference.
I would love an invitation back. You guys are awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. We'll be talking soon.
Bye now.
Bye.
Take care of yourselves. Bye now.